Hey, how you doing? It's your boy Brogi Naric back again with another episode of the Ponder Playhouse. This is a series on the YouTube channel where I do various fan castings for TV shows and movies. And this one that I'm going to be doing today has been a long time in the making. I've been planning to do this one for a while, but other things just got in the way. So I'm happy to finally be getting this out of the way. I'm going to be doing a fan casting for a potential live-action Disney Gargoyles movie. Yes, the Gargoyles, one of the great shows of the 90s, one of my favorite shows as a kid, and still one of my favorite cartoon shows of all time. Great series. If you have the chance, check it out on, if you got Disney Plus, you can watch all 3 seasons. You can really skip the 3rd season. That's just not that good. But the first 2 seasons are really great. And the reason I wanted to do this is because, Disney in the recent years have been doing all these live action versions of their classic animated movies from various degrees of success. Well, they've been successful in terms of money, but in terms of actual movies, I don't really like them, except for maybe Jungle Book, some parts of the Lion King, some parts of Aladdin. I like that. Parts of it, like I said. And the other ones I haven't bothered to see because I just don't care. I'd rather see the animated movies. But Gargoyles is a little different because it's a cartoon. And if they're going to raid their old properties, why don't they do something that they hadn't really touched in decades? I think there was a comic book series for a while, but they don't really do much with this property. And I think this would be that right level of nostalgia to really bring back and amp it up, kind of like what they're trying to do with the Pirates of the Caribbean. I think they're trying to reboot that, but this could be another Pirates of the Caribbean. Another reason I think it would be perfect now to do this is the technology, because these creatures, the gargoyles, are very expensive, and it would be very hard to do and practical. And I think that was one of the reasons why they never really fully went through with it in the past, but they can do it now. Like if you look at the MCU with all the CGI that they use and the motion capture technology, it'll be definitely easier to pull this off. Stone by day, warriors by night, the gargoyles were ancient protectors who were betrayed by the humans they were sworn to protect. They got caught up in this betrayal that led to destruction of the kingdom that they were protecting, and they got cursed to be stoned for over 1,000 years due to this crazy misunderstanding. And then in the modern day in New York City, their curse gets broken and they have to adjust to the new age and technology and magic. And they make new allies and deal with some of their old enemies. They make some new enemies. And, it's a really cool show. It was kind of like Disney's answer to Batman the Animated Series, which was a more darker, more mature kids cartoon, and this is what they were doing with the Gargoyles. It had that more darker, mature adult vibe. It focused on various mythological and Shakespearean references, and it was really dope. It was really good. Kind of also had a Ninja Turtles vibe. They're creatures, they got to stay hidden, but they're in New York and they're getting used to the culture and society. So there's some fun stuff that happened here, but I think this would be a franchise that you could really turn into, maybe not big as Marvel, but if they want another big franchise with multiple movies and interconnected stories and all of that, Gargoyles was set up for that. If you want some Kevin Feige MCU type world building stuff, Gargoyles has plenty of that already seeped into its original stories, because Greg Weisman was one of the creators of the series. He was one of the head writers, and he's done that throughout his entire career. He worked on this. He did Spectacular Spider-Man, and he also works on Young Justice, and he loves doing that whole very, plot heavy, interconnected stuff. And I think, Gargoyles, like I said, is just perfect for this. And so those are just the background on the series, but I'm going to get into my casting choices. But before I get into it, I'm going to be casting not every character, because this is a very expansive cast. So a lot of those side characters I'm not going to be bothering with. So I'm not casting the Magus or Princess Catherine and Thomas, King Arthur, Matt Bluestone, the Pack, and the other clans. We're not doing that. We're going to focus on most of the main clan, the Manhattan clan, and of course, a couple of the villains. First, we're going to start off with the leader, of the Manhattan Clan, that being Goliath. And my pick to play Goliath is Idris Elba. Now, this is pretty obvious. A lot of people have been picking him for Goliath, and it's understandable. Like, it's a good casting choice. Idris Elba, big superstar and leading man. You may know him from the Luther series, Beast of No Nation, recently in the Suicide Squad movie. He's been in a lot of stuff, that Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw movie. Like, he's been in a lot of things, and he's a great actor. He can do comedy, he can do action. He has this great voice and this sort of sternness and regalness to him, which I think would be perfect for Goliath. Goliath is the leader of the Manhattan Clan. He's a very brave and honorable character and a powerhouse too. He's got the name. He's like one of the few gargoyles that has a name back in the ancient times. And once they get betrayed, he's very untrustworthy, but he slowly becomes more interested in wanting to help humanity, because that's what, the gargoyles' whole thing, their whole thing in life is protecting the castle or, human society. So, but also in the modern time, he struggles with adjusting some of his morals for the modern era. He, of course, has to deal with his crazy ex. He has to deal with being a father, and of course, eventually find a replacement because he's getting older and he's, trying to provide an example for the younger members of the clan. But Goliath is a great character, and Idris Elba would definitely bring a lot of gravitas to this. Idris Elba also has a lot of special effects makeup experience when he was in the Star Trek Beyond movie. So if they want to go practical, he can pull it off, but he also has done some motion capture as well. And like I said, he has a dope voice, and he would be great. I think he would be a great fit for the Goliath character. Next up on the list is the #1 human ally to the Gargoyles, that being Detective Eliza Maza. And my pick to play her is Zazie Beetz. Now, you may be familiar with Zazie Beetz from the Atlanta show. She's also was in The Joker. She was in Deadpool 2, and recently The Harder They Fall. Now, I will be honest, the more I see of her, the more I'm a little iffy on her acting ability. Not saying she can't act, but like some of that oomph, especially after seeing her in the Harder They Fall, and even in Joker, but that was more of a smaller role in that one. But she's a good actress, I will say. She's a good actress. I think, well, I'll get more into that. She's a good actress. And she does come from a mixed background. I think she's German, and I think she's like someone's black, someone's white. And she has an action background. And the reason I bring up the mixed background is because Eliza Maza is half black, half Native American. She's this New York detective who teams up with the Gargoyles. Like I said, she's their #1 human ally, and she helps keeps them hidden, but she also helps them adjust to the modern life. And she also has this sort of will they, won't they relationship with Goliath, sort of a Beauty and the Beast type of deal. And there's certain representation with this character. Like I said, her coming from that background, which the show does expand upon that throughout the show various times, focusing on her father's side, who is Native American, and the mother's side, who is black. And maybe there's another actress who is half black, half Native that I couldn't find, but if you want someone with a name, I think she could fill in this role very well. Like I said, she can pull off the action. I can buy her as sort of the tough, sassy, attractive police officer. And I think she'd be a really good pick. And she's a very good and very solid character. She's not just your basic sort of old school April O'Neil where she's just the damsel in distress. Lisa can kick some ass, and she also has some great storylines, especially the stuff that involves her brother, who gets mutated by the main villain Xanatos. That would be cool stuff to see in the series. And like I said, Zazie Beetz would be a solid pick for Eliza Maza. I know a lot of people have been picking, what's her name, Rosario Dawson over the years, but that's understandable too. But I think nowadays, I think someone slightly younger would be better for the role. But that's just my opinion. And I think Zazie Beetz would be great as Eliza Maza. Next up on the list is Hudson, the elder statesman of the Gargoyles Manhattan Clan. And my pick for Hudson is Brendan Gleeson. Now, Brendan Gleeson, you may recognize him from 28 Days Later. He was also in the Harry Potter films. He played Alistair Mad Eye Moody, and he's also recently in some movie where he played Donald Trump. Like that was pretty crazy. But yeah, he's a great character actor. European background, big dude. He can play rough and comical, and that's very much Hudson's character. He was the former leader of the clan. He was the leader that was there before that eventually let Goliath take over. And he's this old, tough badass who's really starting to wind down in his livelihood. And he was one of the ones who was the closest with the humans back in the past. They were in Scotland, and that's the reason why he has like this Scottish accent. And he tends to wear more clothes than the others because he was adapting more of the human style more so than the others. But in the modern time, he's more laid back. He's kind of the, gruff, cranky old guy, but he's still got some moves, and, he's still got some fight in him. And I think Brendan Gleeson would really pull off this character because he can bring out the jovial side of the character, but he can also bring out the badass side. So Brendan Gleeson is my pick for Hudson. All right, next we'll be casting the group known as the Trio, which are the three younger members of the Manhattan Clan. And I'm going to start with Brooklyn. And my pick to play Brooklyn is Evan Peters. You may be familiar with Evan Peters. He played Quicksilver in the X-Men films, Days of Future Past and Apocalypse and Phoenix. He's also big on American Horror Story. And he was also, if you remember in WandaVision, he was a cock tease in that. But the reason I like him as an actor, he's also in has a small bit in Kick-Ass. That's the thing I remember seeing him in first. But he can play cocky and confident, but still have this sort of nerdy vibe to him at the same time and awkwardness. And that's a good way of describing the Brooklyn character, where he's this young hothead who's still learning responsibility because at this point, Goliath is also looking for a new person to take his role as the leader. And Brooklyn is like very, he's very cocky, but he's also wants to be cool. And he can be cool, but he can also be kind of a goofball as well. And he's still learning responsibility. And he's also big on wanting to fit in with humanity, but he's also looking for love. He's got a certain naivete about him as well. He's very competitive. And he's a cool character. He's got a great design with the red and the weird beak look and the white hair. Like, it's a cool design. And I think Evan Peters could bring some of his humor and goofiness, but like seriousness as well to the character. And I think Evan Peters would just be great for the role of Brooklyn. Next up out of the trio is the big man himself, Broadway. And my pick to play Broadway is Cameron Britton. And you may recognize him from Umbrella Academy. I can't remember his name in that show, but he played one of the hitmen, the time-traveling hitman with Mary J. Blige. Real big guy. He's a 6'5". He's a writer, but he's also done some comedy as well. He played Ed Kemper in the Netflix series Mindhunter. Really good in that role too. But I'm focusing more on the size and the humor of him, and he comes off as a imposing but also like a nice guy, and that's very much how Broadway is in the show, where he's the fun-loving tough guy, but he's a big dude. Well, he's not bigger than Goliath, but he's like heavy set, and he's not the brightest, but he's a fun-loving guy. He loves food. He's big into movies and TV. He gets really into that stuff. They all do, but he's like the biggest like movie junkie out of them. And he also loves justice. He's big into like crime shows, and he's like the closest. He becomes very close with Eliza outside of Goliath. Like in terms of like a friendship vibe, him and Eliza get very close. And I think Cameron Britton would be great for this character. I think he could relate to the character, and I think he would be fun in the role. So he's my pick for Broadway. And the last of the trio is Lexington, and my pick to play Lexington is Moises Arias. He's a young actor. I think he's in his mid-20s now, or late. Yeah, he's like in his mid-20s now. You may recognize him from Ender's Game. He was also recently in The King of Staten Island. I mainly remember him from The Middle. He played I think he played the daughter's boyfriend in The Middle. And young actor, and he can play this sort of kind-hearted but awkward genius vibe. He has a unique look. Like he not to shit on the guy, but he does look like the character if he was a fucking human. And he's a small statured guy. He doesn't need to be small statured, but this, the eyes and all that. I think he can pull off the character. He's got the Disney connect because he was a former Disney kid, child actor. He was in Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place. But he can be fun, but he can also bring like a certain I think gruffness to the character as well, because Lexington is the team's. He's kind of like the Donatello of the team. He's the one he's the smart one. He's the run of the group, but he also is the one that picks up the technology aspect of the modern world the most. And he's very curious guy, and he can bring some attitude to the character because the character was a little scrappy in the cartoon, and I think Moises can bring that realness of that the smaller guy who's got to stand out more to the character. And I think he'd be a good pick. And Lexington also is. It was revealed, later that Greg Wiseman intended the character to be. What's the right word? I guess gay out of the Gargoyles. So he is a LGBTQ representation character. And he's a cool character. He's one of my favorites. It's hard to pick my favorite out of the whole clan because through my life I've loved them all equally. But they're all great, and I think Moises would be perfect for Lexington. The next member of the Manhattan clan that I'm going to cast is that of Angela, who is the estranged, I guess, daughter of Goliath. And my pick to play Angela is Frankie Adams. Now, Frankie Adams is, she's from New Zealand, but I think she comes from a Samoan background. She was in this New Zealand soap opera show called Shortland Street, but she would most likely be known for playing the character Bobby Draper in The Expanse. And she's awesome. She's somewhat limited acting experience, but she's been in The Expanse for like a good 4 seasons. So she's got experience, but that's the main big thing you might recognize her from. But she's very attractive. She's tall, and she can definitely play a tough badass because that's what her character was on The Expanse, and that's what Angela is. And she can also pull off the, outsider coming into like a new world, experiencing different things. Because in that show, she played a Marine who was from Mars, and there's a whole moment where she goes to Earth, and she's got her body has to adjust, and she has to get used to all these things. And that's very similar to the Angela character, who is this tough, badass warrior first, but she also has this curiosity about her because she's grown up around humans, unlike the other gargoyles, where she was actually raised by humans, as opposed to this sort of weird relationship between the gargoyles and the humans. But she's also curious because she's grown up in like this weird mystical area. Then she starts to travel the world with her father. She is the daughter of Goliath and his crazy ex Demona. And there's some tension between him and her early on because Goliath is very stuck in his sort of traditional gargoyle ways where they care for the entire clan. They don't specifically raise one specific child. So he's kind of weird about accepting that she's his daughter type thing. But, they get over that eventually. And she's an awesome character. She comes in a little bit later in the second season. But I think Frankie Adams would be perfect in pulling off the character. Like I said, she can pull off the badass side, but she can also pull off the more softer side of the character. And they'll have to rework how they do her story because there's a whole half a season where it's just her, Goliath, and Eliza traveling the world. I don't know how they would pull that off in the movie, but when she gets back with the team, or when she actually joins the team, she has to deal with the whole being the one girl on the team and everyone's hitting on her type stuff. And I think there would be some great comedy between Frankie Adams and the other actors pulling some of that stuff off. So yes, Frankie Adams is my pick for Angela. And lastly, of the Manhattan Clan, I have to pick the team's mascot, sort of pet, that being Bronx. And my pick to play Bronx is Frank Welker or D. Bradley Baker. The reason I picked two actors is because, well, Frank Welker is the original voice actor of the character from the cartoon, and he would be perfect. You can just hire him, but being realistic, he isn't of an advanced age, so it might take a while for this movie to happen. So if he were to, not be able to do it or pass away, I chose D. Bradley Baker because he's kind of like Frank Welker is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, voice actor of all time. Look up his resume. He can do it all, and he's also very good at doing animal noises and sounds. And D. Bradley is like the number 2 guy who's very good at doing animal noises and sounds. So that's the reason why I picked him for the role. But Bronx, of course, would be mostly motion capture or CGI. And like I said, he's like the team's mascot / dog-like subspecies of the gargoyles. They don't really explain it that well, but this, they got the humanoids, and then they got these weird sort of animal-like versions of themselves as well. But he's tough and loyal, and he usually hangs out with Hudson back at the watchtower that they hang out in. But he's also, can get vicious when he needs to. So that's my pick for Bronx. Pretty easy casting there. Okay, so now we're going to get into casting the villains. And Gargoyles has great villains. That's, I think, one of the best ways to do a property, especially if you're doing like a superhero property, is you have to have strong villains. And Gargoyles have numerous of strong villains. And so numerous that you got to really pick and choose who you want. And I'm going after who are I think would be the strongest villains to focus around a movie, especially if you're going with like a 3-movie structure or some sort of a 4-movie structure. I think these would be some of the stronger villains that you can focus on. So I'm first going to focus on my casting for Cold Stone, aka Othello. And my pick to play Cold Stone is Chad L. Coleman. So Chad L. Coleman, you would most likely recognize him from The Walking Dead. I don't remember the character that he played in that. He was also in The Expanse. That's what I mainly know him from. Great actor, cool voice, and he does have special effects makeup experience because he's on the show The Orville, where he plays the character Clyden. So he's got the voice, he's got the attitude, the acting experience, and if they want to go practical, he has practical effects experience. And so Cold Stone / Othello is a reincarnated cyborg gargoyle who's created from sorcery and science. He's recreated through the characters Demona and David Xanatos. And he's a combination of the various gargoyle pieces, because I forgot to explain, but in the show, the gargoyles, at day, they're stone, at night, they're alive. And a lot of them got destroyed, and so he's like a hodgepodge of different pieces of gargoyles, and so he's like 3 personalities in one. There's Othello, who is the main personality, and he is Goliath's brother. He's considered his brother, not blood brothers, but they're brothers. There's Desdemona, who Othello's in love with, and then there's Iago, who is the other personality. And they're all based on the Shakespearean Othello play. He's Othello, she's Desdemona, and Iago's the one that's talking shit in Othello's ear that causes him to go crazy. And that's very much how the character is. He is very jealous and protective of Desdemona. There's a whole backstory where he was jealous of Goliath because Iago was making him think that Goliath wanted his woman. And he's easily manipulated by both Iago and the Xanatos character, and he has to deal with his inner conflict. And eventually he turns good, but he is an enemy that pops up throughout the series from time to time that causes trouble for the gargoyles. And he's also one of those enemies that's, tragic, and they actually want to help. Like, they don't like fighting him. They most likely like to, free him of his pain and all that. So he's a very interesting character, and I think he'd be great to have it pop up in a Gargoyles movie. So Chad L. Coleman is my pick for Cold Stone. Next up is that of the Archmage. The way I'm going with the Archmage in this, he's one of the big enemies that they deal with. If you're thinking of this as sort of an MCU type of deal, he's kind of closest to your Thanos type of character. And my pick to play the Archmage is Hugh Laurie. Yes, Hugh Laurie. You may, of course, recognize him from House. He was on the show Veep. He's been in a lot of different things. He played the dad in Stuart Little. Always remember that. He does have a Disney connection. A lot of these actors I'm also picking have these strong Disney connections. But he can be goofy, but he can also play a sinister villain. And that's what the Archmage character is in the show. So he's one of the enemies from the past. He was the head magician for the kingdom that that the Gargoyles were a part of back in ancient Scotland, Castle Reverend. Back in the day, he was the main magician, but he also turned bad and he tried to kill the king and they had to stop him, and they thought that he had died, but when they come into modern time, he's still alive because he's obsessed with collecting these powerful items, almost like you could work them as Infinity Stones. It's these 3 powerful items: the Phoenix Gate, which basically controls time travel, the Grimorum Arcanorum, which is this powerful book of spells, and that's where he gets a lot of his mystical knowledge from, and the Eye of Odin. It's this powerful item that's actually the Eye of Odin, Thor's father, that gives people like this immense power boost. There's a whole storyline where he has this version of himself in the future, which has all these items, but he has to set up all these different plans for things to go right so he can eventually take over the world. It's very intricate. Like I said, it's very MCU-esque in the ways of this, multi-layered master plan. And I think Hugh Laurie would be great for that. He'd be like a great actor that brings some gravitas, but like I said, he can play the sinister side of the character, but also the humorous side, because there's a lot of moments where the future version is talking to the past version. The past version is kind of a goof, and the future version is like yelling at him to you got to tighten up so we can make this plan work type of stuff. And Hugh Laurie would kill it in those type of moments. And he's also important because he's the one who trained Demona in the mystic arts, and he also hates Goliath for stopping him in the past. So he has this, hatred for the Gargoyles and also this other connection with them. So he would be a solid villain. And like I said, you can make him like your main overarching villain. That's sort of your Thanos of this whole series. But Hugh Laurie would be my pick to play the Archmage. And next up is another fun villain, another powerful mystical villain, and that is Puck. My pick to play Puck is Robert Sheehan. And he's been in various TV shows. I mainly know him as Klaus from the Umbrella Academy, and he's a great, fantastic actor. And he can be very flamboyant and wacky, but he can also play a sinister side, and he can be very comical. And that fits perfectly with the Puck character, who is this mystical prankster who causes trouble for the Gargoyles. He's an imp. Is he an imp or an elf? He's an imp. He's a mystical imp that pops up from time to time to kind of fuck around with the Gargoyles. But in the show, he is disguised as David Xanatos' right-hand man, Owen. And I think it would be fun for Robert Sheehan, who's mostly, if you look at the Klaus character, playing this wild, wacky character, and just like in the show, it would be cool if you would have an actor known for that also kind of play against type, where he's the stern, serious right-hand man of Xanatos, but when they have the moments for him to play Puck, he can then break loose and be wacky. And I think Robert Sheehan would be perfect for that. Now, Puck is like I said, very mystical, a very powerful villain. He's a villain, but he's also kind of like at times he can be a bit of an ally, but he's really just a prankster. He likes to, jerk people around. And there are moments where his powers are used by others to force the Gargoyles into various dangerous situations. And but he's a cool character. He's another character who kind of starts off as an enemy, but then later kind of becomes an ally throughout various storylines. And yeah, I think Robert Sheehan would be perfect for that role. So he's my pick to play Puck. And next up is another great and phenomenal villain within the Gargoyles show, and that is the bounty hunter himself, Macbeth. And my pick to play Macbeth is Ray Stevenson. Now, you may remember him from, he played the Punisher in the Punisher Warzone movie. He was also on Dexter, and he's been in some other various movies throughout his career. Oh, he was also in the Thor films for a little bit. He played Volstagg. So he's a good actor. He can be a badass and he can be comical. Now, Macbeth is definitely more serious. He's not a comical character by any slight. He's this deadly mercenary who spent his life hunting down gargoyles, because he's also an old Scottish king from in the past, and through some craziness and mysticalness, he's basically an immortal, and he becomes intertwined with the character Demona. They're like mystically bound to each other, and it makes them immortal. It made him older, made her younger, but it also makes them immortal and kind of enhance their abilities. And they worked together for years. He was this powerful king, and then eventually she betrayed him, and it cost him his kingdom and his family. So he spent the rest of his life getting rich, but also working to kill every gargoyle he comes across, and then also to hunt down Demona. And in the modern time, he gets hired by David Xanatos to help him kill or capture the gargoyles. So he's kind of got this Craven the Hunter-ish vibe, but he's also like a Highlander technically, because he's immortal and da-da-da. But he's a badass. He's got technology. He knows a little bit of magic. He's super smart. He's super rich. And he just fucking hates gargoyles. So over time, he eventually is, getting tired of this whole thing. And he, not necessarily an ally, but like he will sometimes help the guard. Later on in the series, he starts to help them out occasionally, or at least if he wants something and realizes it's not going to help him, then he just kind of like, all right, you guys got it type shit. So he's a very complex villain and a very great character. And I think Ray Stevenson would be perfect in pulling off the badass side, but also the dramatic side as well. So Ray Stevens is my pick for Macbeth. So my next casting is that of one of the big villains throughout this series, and that is David Xanatos. And my pick for David Xanatos is Oscar Isaac. Everyone knows Oscar Isaac. He's a very popular actor right now, strong leading man, great performer. He's recently, in the Dune movie. You might know him as Poe Dameron in the Star Wars films. He was in the movie Ex Machina, which was the thing that helped me pick him for this role. And of course, he's going to be playing Moon Knight in the upcoming Disney Plus series. So he's great. He's got this charm, he's got this swag, but he can also play sinister when he needs to. And that's a very important aspect in order playing David Xanatos. Because Xanatos is this rich billionaire tech mogul who has a dark side. He's a villain, but he's very multi-layered. Because he's very much like an evil. If we're going MCU, he's an evil Tony Stark. He's very much an evil Tony Stark. Just imagine Tony Stark, but like when he did those things that created the villains, he actually did it on purpose as opposed by accident. Because he's this very super smart guy who always has a plan to come out on top. He's very Machiavellian. Like he very rarely does he lose. Like even when you think you've beaten him, you really haven't, because he has all these multiple plans that can go very different ways. He's, like I said, evil Tony Stark, or like a cool, smooth Lex Luthor. And I think Oscar Isaacs could pull that off. Like I said, in Ex Machina, where he plays this, wacky sort of billionaire guy. Like Xanatos wasn't that wacky, but he was an odd guy, but he was also just always very cool and very, very layered villain. Because like I said, he starts off as the villain. He's the one who helps bring the gargoyles into the modern era, and he tries to use them for his own evil plans so they get away from him. And then he just sets up these plans where even when the gargoyles think they've beaten him or they stopped his plan, actually he wanted them to stop it so he can do X, Y, and Z. Now, he's very good at that. And I think Oscar Isaac could pull that off. And like I said, you need great villains for a series. Xanatos has like a lot of crazy things that goes on. That's like some time travel stuff. Like that's how he got rich, because he went back in time on his wedding day and mailed himself a coin, a 10th century coin, to himself as a kid, and then as a young man, he took that money and flipped it, and then that turned into his billionaire empire, like crazy shit like that. He has the Steel Clan, which is basically like robot drones of the gargoyles. He has the mutants, which are like newer versions of the gargoyles that he's helped create. The scientist he works with creates for him, and they're made out of people. He's a member of the Illuminati. Yes, the Illuminati exists in this world. And then, of course, he has the character Coyote, which is like this AI doppelganger of him. Basically, his Ultron. Like I said, if you want to do some MCU-esque shit outside of the MCU, Gargoyles is the perfect franchise to pull this off of. A lot of that stuff is easily to translate. Make it different, but like it's easily, you can see how this could work. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to go that route, really dig into this franchise. But yeah, and like I said, he's a villain, but after a bunch of betrayals, they eventually make a truce and he becomes like an ally to them. He kind of becomes like a benefactor. He's willing to help them whenever he can. So he does, turn around on them as the series goes on. Like I said, very multi-layered character, and Oscar Isaacs would be perfect for David Xanatos. And I saved the best for last, the big villain, the main draw out of Gargoyles, and that is the character Demona. And I went through a lot of different choices for this character, because there's a number of actresses who could really pull this off in various ways, depending on how you want to play this character. Because Demona is one of the best characters in this whole show, one of the best villains in, I would say, in cartoon history, in just history in general. She's a very multi-layered, dynamic character. When I first did this list, because I've been working on this for a while, my first pick was Rosamund Pike. She's perfect. She would have been great, especially after finally seeing Gone Girl. She's got this, awesome look, but she's got this cold-heartedness to her. She could really pull it off. And another obvious pick too, would be Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett has like the sex appeal. She has the sternness and the villainous side of her. She can pull it off as well if you want to go in that direction. Ava Green was another one that I picked. She can pull off the whole femme fatale thing, which is very big with the Demona character. And she'll be good too in a certain way if you want to go in that range. And then I landed on Lena Headey, Cersei from Game of Thrones, Mama from Dread. Perfect role. She was the one I had. But then I thought about it, and deep in my heart, I know I had to go with this pick. So my pick to play Demona is Lupita Nyong'o. That's right, Lupita Nyong'o, popular actress. You know her from 12 Years a Slave. She was in Black Panther, and of course the movie Us by Jordan Peele. And that was the movie that made me go, you know what? We could have some fun with this role. Great actress. She's Oscar nominated, Oscar winner for Best Supporting Actress. And one of the other things that helped me pick her for this, she does have motion capture experience. I forgot she played Maz Kanata in the recent Star Wars movie, Disney films. She was also in the live-action Jungle Book. She's a great range, great acting ability. And when she was in the movie Us, she plays doppelgangers, and she plays this role where she's very intense and scary and creepy and sinister. And I love that vibe, and I think she can bring that vibe to Demona. Now, Demona is a very multi-layered, very complex villain, but in a simple way, she's kind of like a Magneto, where she has a superiority complex, and she's also like a genocidal madman where she hates all humans. She does not trust humans because her clan in the past was betrayed by humans. But the thing that makes it complex is her clan was, killed and destroyed by humans, but she plays a big role in that because she was the one who helped the betrayal, and then she got betrayed because of her betrayal. And rarely does she accepts her fault in things, because this happened to her twice. Her original clan got killed because she betrayed someone and it bit her in the ass. She does it again with the character Macbeth, and that also bites her in the ass and, you know, creates Macbeth as her lifelong enemy, because like I said, her and Macbeth are mystically tied together, and they're immortals after that. But she hates humans. She's very prejudiced to the humans. And Lupita Nyong'o, her, you know, of course, being a black woman, she could bring a certain realism to the whole being an outsider and people, you know, not liking certain groups. She can bring that vibe there, with like not liking certain people for prejudice reasons, and her being, of course, prejudiced to them for, you know, their prejudice reasons. Like, there's layers to this shit, and I think Lupita, and especially with Idris Elba playing Goliath, you could bring a certain realistic vibe to this whole situation, and I think they would be great for it. And she's, you know, Goliath's ex/baby mama. She crazy as hell, but she's also very dangerous because she knows magic, and of course, her living the entire, you know, centuries that the gargoyles were frozen, she's also knows technology as well. So she's a triple threat, and yeah, she's just a fucking awesome character. The whole stuff where she's trying to convince the other gargoyles, like, hey, come to my side, humans ain't shit, and they're always like, no, bitch, you just crazy. Her hatred for Eliza, when she sees that Goliath and Eliza got this kind of, you know, will they want they thing going on, like she just hates Eliza. Yeah, that's like her number one hated human outside of Macbeth. And, you know, she goes through certain things. She teams up with Xanatos. She betrays Xanatos. She teams up with other villains. She betrays those villains. Like, she's all in for herself. That's her goal. She wants to kill all the humans. And if she can't kill all the humans, she at least just wants to kill Eliza. She's just an amazing character. There's, you know, stuff later on where she can turn human and, you know, blend in society and all of this crazy shit. Like, she's just a dope character. And I think Lupita Nyong'o would be one of the best picks. Like, there's other good picks, but I think, especially the way I'm thinking how this movie and this franchise would go, she would be perfect for the Mona. So yeah, those are my picks for a potential live action Gargoyles film, as Disney were to get off their asses and actually do something interesting, as opposed to just blandly recreating like classics. Like, give us something a little different and something a little more of an edge to it. Like, I'm not expecting like something rated R or anything like that, but something that's a little more of an edge to it, and a new franchise and a nostalgia that you can build on that you haven't really done a hell of a lot with. Like, it would be nice to see Disney put some real effort and money behind Gargoyles, especially in this modern era where they, you know, everything is like nostalgia and franchise heavy. Gargoyles is perfect, especially with the, you know, like I said, multi-layered storytelling and cinematic universes. Like, Gargoyles is just sitting right there. Like, instead of trying to make a cinematic universe out of fucking Pirates of the Caribbean, Gargoyles is right there. It was a cinematic universe before that was like even a big deal. Like, it was very comic book driven before everything was kind of serialized like that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a no-brainer. And I think this cast would be dope in live action. But, you know, let me know what you think about my thoughts in the comments. Let me know some of your own ideas and pictures for a Gargoyles movie in the comments. And also any suggestions on any other fan cast you would like to see me do in the future. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace.